Do you feel powerless? Like you're not really able to make your own choices with how you spend your time or energy? Or that everything you do is just based on what other people need or what other people expect from you? And do you kind of feel like your day is just a series of moments where you're just having to deal with it, like deal with the hand that you've been dealt? If that's true, your life might have a feeling of like stuckness to it, like you're a cog in a machine or like you have no options. And any wish that you might have to change or grow gets thwarted because you don't feel like you have any space in your life to for any newness or to try anything different. So I want to offer you a way to break through that feeling of stuckness and hopefully help you create some space in your life where you can see that you can put new ideas into that space. So this series of questions is: next time you feel like you're in a situation where you're able to reflect on, like, you know, where can I create space in my life, right? Whether it's at work or at home, to just ask yourself these series of questions. So I'm going to walk through these questions one by one. The very first question you want to ask yourself is when someone tells you to do something, or there's an expectation that's being placed on you that you feel like you have to respond to in some way, is to ask yourself, why do I comply? Why do I comply with that expectation? The flip side of compliance is rebellion, right? So you could also ask yourself, like, why do I rebel? Compliance and rebellion look really different, but at the core, they're still just um, reactions to what other people expect. So we're still giving up our control of what we do based on what other people want us to do. So the first thing to ask yourself is, why do I comply or why do I rebel? So a good, generic examples of this is, why do I do what my boss says? Or why do I rebel against my parents' wishes, right? So the answer to those might be, well, I comply to my boss's wishes because I don't want to get fired. Because if I don't do what my boss says, I'll get fired. Or if I don't rebel against my parents, I'll turn out like them, right? So that's the first level of inquiry that to do in this with this framework. The next is to ask yourself, is that true? Is that really true? Is it really true that if you don't do what your boss says, that you'll get fired? Maybe you'll question a little bit of the extremeness of that, right? You might think, well, no, I won't get fired, but I'll get in trouble. Okay, so how do I know I'll get in trouble? How do you really know that you'll get in trouble? And the answer to that might be, well, it's happened before. Like, I didn't listen to my boss before and I got in trouble. So the next thing to ask is, what's different now? What's different now about this situation? And you might realize that, well, what's different now is that that was 2 years ago and it was a very different request. Maybe it was a different boss. It was a totally different company. Also, I'm different now. I know more about what I'm doing, right? So there are a lot of things that are different now about the situation. One thing I want to make sure to point out is that this is a completely non-judgmental inquiry. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with complying or rebelling, right? You might have some very good reasons why you're complying that have to do with survival or safety, right? And we're not trying to say to, just because you're questioning it doesn't mean you have to do something differently, right? It's simply an inquiry to see where you might have areas that you are complying when you don't really have to, and challenging some of the assumptions that are formulating the conclusion that you have to comply or rebel. So hopefully after you've made these inquiries, you're starting to feel, you might feel a couple things. One is a sense of relief, like, oh wow, I feel more free now. I feel like there's space now that I can actually that, I've sort of busted through some of these assumptions and now I'm sort of relieved by that. You might also feel discomfort, like, oh God, now I actually have to do something about this. Like I was so comfortable in my discontent in a way, and now that I know that I can actually like do something about it, that's kind of uncomfortable. But either way, either reaction is great because what that means is now you have space. You have space to make a different choice. And no one can make you make that choice. So you can maintain what you've always done, or you now have a different option to do something else. So if you feel up for doing something else, I suggest to just brainstorm some ideas, brainstorm some alternative endings to the story, right? Some different possibilities that might happen if you were to really ask for what you want. I hope this helps, and um, please give it a try. And if you find that it's worked for you, let me know what worked and how I might make this better. Thanks so much.